Thank you all for being here. My name is Tabraj Ghosh. I'm here with Ashvini, who is working on his computer, updating some things. Hopefully everyone is in the right place. So our topic today is introducing robotic process automation with Microsoft Power Automate. And okay, is it better? Okay. All right. So that's our topic for today. And for those of you who are looking to be here for a Microsoft Flow session, just in case you missed some of the announcements we made during this Ignite. Of course, you probably know by now that Microsoft Flow is Microsoft Power Automate. And so that's why this session is actually titled Power Automate and Robotic Process Automation. So what we're going to cover today for our agenda is we're really going to level set, once again, a little bit on what Power Automate is. Our assumption here is that there's probably some people in this session who are looking at the Power Automate stuff for the first time, or sort of at the first session about Power Automate.
Can we get a feel for that? How many people have used Flow before?
Power Automate.
Power Automate. Congratulations.
Okay. So that's great. And I think what we're going to do today is, for that first section, since it seems like most of this crowd knows a lot about Power Automate, or what you all knew as Flow, we're going to go over that briefly. So I'll spend about 10 minutes about that and level set on what Power Automate offers today, and then some of the RPA capabilities. And then Ash is really going to go do a deep dive on all the different capabilities. And we're going to actually show you some great customer scenarios. So I know if you guys have been following the Power Automate track, of course, in the keynote, Charles Lamanna had a great session where he talked about Power Virtual Agents and how Power Automate worked with TrueGreen. And we're going to actually show you an extended version of something along the lines of what TrueGreen is doing with invoicing. So something you didn't see in the keynote, you're going to see here today. We're going to actually talk about our friends from Aioi Nissay, who are also using Power Automate. And they have a couple different use cases. And then we're going to actually talk about something that we do at Microsoft also. So one of the things is when you build cool technology, it's kind of good to know how you can use these things and how you can unlock different types of use cases. So we want to cover that. And then Ash is going to do a great job of deep diving into how he created some of these flows and how he created some of the situations and how he was able to solve for them. So let's get started. Of course, everything that we're doing with the Power Platform, with Power Automate, is to help empower the people that drive more business value. So one of the reasons we think that empowering your people is really what is the key to everything is that we talk about digital transformation. And what studies have shown is that most organizations will buy a lot of different technologies in order to expedite that digital transformation. But it's not just about the technology. It's really about buying the right technology. So if you just have a lot of technology, what you're doing is you're creating a huge cluster of different things in your IT environment. That actually sometimes can impede the progress and impede your digital transformation. What you want to make sure is when you buy technology, you actually have the right pieces of technology. And that's really what the Power Platform is designed to do. We believe it's the right technology to really unlock the potential of your people. And if you were able to see the keynote that Charles Lamanna once again delivered for the James Phillips keynote, he actually walked through an example of all the different parts of the Power Platform. So he showed an example, and in fact, once again, the customer there was TrueGreen, and we showed three different scenarios. We actually showed how we improve and enhance the customer experience on the website for TrueGreen, which was similar to the Satya keynote, if you saw that. We then also showed how the Power Platform can extend capabilities for the field agents at TrueGreen, where you can actually create a custom app. With that app, you can actually look at information on a person's lawn. You can use our AI capabilities with the Power Platform, and we'll talk about that also here today. And take that information, send it back to TrueGreen, and actually get real-time data on what could be impacting someone's lawn. We also showed you how Power BI can be used to show you real-time data of all the things that are going on in that specific area. So with the Power Platform, we were able to actually show multiple scenarios that TrueGreen was able to solve for very easily with no code and very little time and effort. And that's really the power of the Power Platform. And of course, the Power Platform includes these four products, and our focus today is going to be on Power Automate, and specifically how it is now able to do robotic process automation, and how that is going to now take us to the next level of automation for your entire ecosystem. So once again, what can Power Automate do? It offers automation at scale. What we really mean by that is because Power Platform, the basic theme of the Power Platform is that it's ability to code for everyone. It's ability for everyone to create applications, analyze data, automate workflows, and now also create virtual agents and bots to actually make customer experiences better, actually make your internal experiences better within your organization. And so that's what automation at scale does, is Power Automate is that part of the Power Platform that enables anyone to automate workflows. It's seamless and secure, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next section where we talk about how Power Automate can have multiple connectors and how it actually extends to your entire ecosystem. It's also very secure. So you're using Azure AD in order for authentication. You're using Microsoft DLP. So it's one of the most secure automation services that is also available because it actually is secured by Microsoft's own services. And AAD, for those of you who are using that, you know that it's probably the most widely used authentication service on the planet today. It, of course, accelerates your productivity, and Ash is going to show you those use cases that we talked about, where you actually see how the Power Platform and the Power Automate service can actually make your organization be much more productive because we can automate so many different things. And then, of course, intelligent automation. We'll actually show you how we can use the power of AI and embed that into your flows in Power Automate and actually make your automations more intelligent as well. And once again, going back to the key theme, Power Automate is designed for anyone. Literally, anyone can make flows because Ash actually is building the product, and I barely know anything about it, but I can actually also build flows. Not quite as complicated as what Ash can do, but I can still make them. And so it's really for people like me who are not as technically minded as Ash is, who can also sit down, build their own flow, and actually automate workflows and make their lives a little bit easier. So anyone can actually use that. So I'm in that end user category, and I can actually build my own flows. Ash is, of course, the experienced developer. And then for those IT pros, we actually also have those features like security, creating environments, being able to monitor what's going on with your flows across your entire organization. So we actually cover all the different elements of your organization in terms of who the users are and who will actually be able to build these flows and who can actually benefit from the flows. Now, these are all the different capabilities that you can actually get with Microsoft Power Automate. So you can automate across on-prem and cloud apps. And I think if any of you were at Keith's session right before, he was talking about gateways. So you can actually connect them. And in fact, Ash is going to show that too also when we talk about the on-prem legacy app that TrueGreen has. You can share flows like documents. You can actually natively integrate, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, it extends across different ecosystems. And of course, this new piece right here, which is automate across modern and legacy apps, that's really the new robotic process automation piece, which we're going to focus on. We connect to several different types of data. We are built on the common data service. And then, of course, we also offer intelligent AI. And we'll talk a little bit about all these elements as we go through today. OK, so let's talk a little bit about what today's session is really going to focus on. It's really bridging automation across your ecosystem with this addition of RPA. So for those of you who have been using Power Automate or Flow since its inception, you're fairly aware that we've been growing our ecosystem of connectors pretty rapidly. So now we're already at 275 plus. It literally grows every single week. I think I've been on this team for about 4 months. I think we've added something like 30 new connectors in that 4 months. So it's actually growing very rapidly. Every single week there's new connectors. Now, here's really where things get very, very interesting with Power Automate. We are natively integrated with Office 365. Now, the key really is that integration is native. Now, no other service really will have that native integration, no other automation service, since that's what the area we're in. No other automation service really has that native integration capability with Office 365. Obviously, Office 365 is Microsoft's platform, and therefore we are the only automation service that can natively integrate. What does that really mean for the end user? Well, in any other automation service, you'd most likely, if you want to automate something on Teams, or if you want to automate something on SharePoint, you'd actually have to leave the service, create your automation, and then somehow import that automation back into the SharePoint service or the Teams service or Excel. Here, with Power Automate, you can actually have a button right inside the UI for Teams or SharePoint or OneDrive where you can directly begin your automation and create your flow at the time inside the app. So you really are just clicking a button to start building your a flow and start automating the process. You can't really do that with any other of these automation platforms. So this is, once again, one of the powerful elements of native integration, and is that we can be directly inside these other applications. Now, we also have connectors with some of your core operations processes. So, of course, we have connectors with Salesforce. We, of course, are natively integrated with Dynamics 365. And then also coming very soon will be connectors for SAP. So we're really covering all the bases when it comes to these core operations processes and these different platforms. And so Power Automate will also be able to cover SAP in the next few months. Is that an Amber Alert? Yeah. Okay. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the power of AI. So I don't know how many of you saw Tulsi's session. She was giving a session maybe an hour and a half ago over in Theater 4. She covered AI Builder, and AI Builder is one of the things that's part of the Power Platform. It's actually in all the different services, I don't think all of them, but it's in several of the services in the Power Platform. It comes with 4 pre-built models, and we're actually going to cover one of these today. We're going to actually talk about the forms processing, and so Ash is going to show you how that's used. If you saw Charles's keynote in James Phillips' session, he actually showed you object detection, where we actually took a picture of some grass that TrueGreen provided us, and that's exactly what a field agent can do. They can take a picture of the grass that can identify what is this grass problem that I'm having. It connects to TrueGreen's knowledge base, and then immediately we can tell that field agent that this is what the problem is. So that's where the object detection plays a strong role. We can also create predictive modeling, and then we can also use text classification with the AI Builder. And then, of course, you have the ability to create your own models and custom models with AI Builder too. Now, the last couple pieces before I turn it over to Ash is that this is really where he's going to take you, and we're going to spend the next half an hour or so, which is what are we doing with this RPA? So RPA really for us is when you talk about digital transformation, not everyone is going to be at the same pace doing the same things and needing to do the same things. So you're not going to all be using Office 365 or all be using modern apps. And in fact, some of your applications that you have that are slightly older, that may not have APIs, you'll never get rid of them. You need to have them. Because they're core to your business, and you are going to have them regardless of where technology takes you. So the thing is, how can you use those applications and actually make those applications more productive for you? And that's really where this Power Automate RPA capability comes into place. And now what we can do is, because we've already built Power Automate for digital process automation, now we can connect that with this RPA capability so that we can create and provide a single platform and a single automation service that covers all of the bases. And that's really what this RPA capability is going to show you. And for those of you, I think most of you know sort of how RPA works, and Ash is going to go much more deeper. But essentially what we're going to show you is that with our RPA, using UI flows, we can record a task. And so basically what we can do is we can record how you interact with an application and how you take click steps, and we can record those click steps. And then we can automate that task by recording it, and then ultimately we can execute that task. And we're going to show you some examples of how we do that. And in fact, we'll have 4 customer scenarios where we show you how that is exactly done. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Ash, who's going to take you deeper into the technology behind our RPA. All right, thank you.
Okay. Wow, it's loud. You can hear me? It's a little loud for me. Yeah, testing. Hey, great, thank you. I'm super excited to be here. I just wanted to save your eardrums. We've been working on this for many months, and it just is very exciting to be able to share with you here. We'll go at a whole bunch of elevations, so if I'm going too deep, somebody nudge me. If I'm going too high, somebody nudge me. We'll see where we end up. Yeah, so how RPA works. For the RPA space, how many people are familiar with the term RPA? Oh, great, wonderful. How many are using RPA tools today? Great. Perfect. So for those that are not familiar yet with the RPA landscape, there are 2 core scenarios. The first one is attended RPA, the other one is unattended RPA. For attended RPA, think of yourself as sitting in front of a machine, and I'm doing interactive acceleration. That's how I call it, which is I just want to get my stuff done faster with less mistakes. And I will initiate it as I'm sitting in front of the machine, and I will typically be logged on to this machine. So think of a customer agent that's getting a call, and there's 6 different windows they have to open up, and there's a CRM system, there's a customer ticketing management system, and all. This is what we announced as public preview this Monday, which is available. You can go try out. The other one is unattended. And for unattended, it is a back office. I just want automation to happen without the humans doing it themselves. Invoice processing is a great example of unattended, where just a new invoice shows up, just go handle it without bothering me. This one should run automatically, And it should be able to log on to a system, run the execution, and then log off from that. For Unattended, we announced a private preview, which is available. So for those of you interested, just drop me a note, and we can take it from there. So the way UI Flow shows up is, this is, you're all familiar with Power Automate. So this is just another type of connector in Power Automate. And we have, as Debraj mentioned, a way of recording experiences. And when you see the recording, you can go through and look at the snapshot of those actions. Very similar to in Power Automate, you have the verbs that you use are send an email, add a new record to your database, et cetera. The verbs here, because it's a UI automation, is left click, right click, enter value, read value from control, which just make more sense for the UI automation. Where it all fits into the same design language. So this looks like a flow designer because our strategy is just extend the flow as a platform, Power Automate as a platform to be able to do UI automation as well. So let's do a demo. Actually, the demo is of a currency exchange rate. So let me switch over. Yep. So this is one where I have a spreadsheet that just has different rows of different currencies. And this is inspired by our Microsoft Finance folks that have a similar need, which is they get data from a different set of data sources across the world, and they want to normalize everything into US dollars. Yeah, so fairly standard finance scenario. And just to demonstrate this, what I'll do is I'll use a website for doing this. So this is my flow. So remember, the Power Automate is the overall product. You still create flows, right? So you create automated flows, UI flows, business process flows. So this is a flow. I will manually trigger this flow. It'll look over all the rows in this spreadsheet. And for anyone where this is blank, exchange rate used is blank, it'll then check, is that a USD? Is the source currency a USD? If it is USD, then I don't need an exchange rate. I'll just set the exchange rate used to 1. If it is not a USD, then I want to go fetch a currency exchange rate. And in order for me to do that, I don't have a service available to me. There's no API accessible to me. And I just cheated. I went to bing.com, and I said, I want to convert USD to EUR. And it gave me some value back. And I said, hey, that's interesting. I want to use this instead of copying, pasting it over and over again. So that's a scenario. So I go through, and in my spreadsheet, what you do is I'm going to define, I already have one created just in case there's excitement, undue excitement, so I'm going to create a new one. And let's see how that works. You've already seen the Windows recording experience, and we go deeper into that. I'm going to show you the web recording experience now. And for the web, we're partnering with the open source community, the Selenium IDE open source community. For those of you familiar with the browser automation, Selenium is a technology for automating across browsers. And there is another open source project called Selenium IDE, and that allows you to have an IDE experience for defining scripts. So I'll say, create a new UI flow. So ignite. And launch recorder. For Windows, you saw Charles show at the keynote, there's a desktop recorder. For browser, it is Selenium IDE. So I go through and I start recording. It's so exciting, we're getting Amber alerts. Okay, I'm going to convert USD to EUR. And what you see is on the right-hand side, I'm doing the interactions. On the left-hand side, it's recording my actions. And the language here is pretty rich. So you can go through, interesting. You can go through, and I was trying to zoom, actually. There is a whole language for, there are commands, there are control flows, there are loops, there are decisions, there are variables. It's a pretty rich language for you to be able to work against websites. So in this case, what I'll do is I will call a procedure called store value, which is to read value from a website. Let me start recording. SD to EUR. And I want to read from this 0.9. So my target is going to be this control, which is 0.9. And I want to save it to an exchange rate variable. Yeah, so fairly standard recording. I'm now tying these back in. Now what I want to do is pass in. I don't want, for every row, it may be different for what I want to convert from. So I don't want to have a hard-coded USD to EUR. And one of the other things that we've done with Selenium IDE is integrated deeply into Power Automate so that we're able to understand the language and be able to understand where the variables are and define what are the input variables and what are the output variables. So if I go through here, and just so you don't see me type, I've got a cheat. Instead of opening the default Bing browser, I will do this. Right, so this is just a search, and there's a dollar source currency, dollar destination currency, and that's all it's going to do. It's going to execute that Bing query and use these source currency and destination currencies as inputs. And I, in fact, don't need any of this other stuff. So I'm just going to take rid of that, stop recording, and save. Yeah, so now I will use the Edge Chromium, or you could use Chrome as well as a browser. And what should happen is this, which is it discovers that there is a source currency and destination currency parameters. And not only that, but also the output, which is exchange rate, is just as Power Automate or Flow as you're used to, every action can have outputs as well. So in this case, I want to push in this variable, which is exchange rate that's coming from my previous step. Right, so my UI flow for web generates an output, which is exchange rate used. And that's it. That's my flow. So it's going to go through. Let's test it out. I'll switch over to Excel. And what it's going to do is go through all the rows to see which ones require exchange rate. It's going to browse, launch the browser. It's going to go call Bing to do the currency exchange, going to read the value, and then write it to Excel. Right? So fairly straightforward and fairly powerful for users to be able to do this on their own without having to require services that they need to rely on. Any question? It takes a few seconds for it to write back to Excel. I'll pause here. Any questions while that's writing? Yes?
You hide the UI, or is it always bring the
Yes. The question is, can you hide the UI? Is it always in your face? It is always in your face right now. Yes, we should be able to hide it in the future. There are some of the UIs, because it's UI automation, some UI automation relies on the app being there. Otherwise, Windows says, what are you trying to do? You're trying to enter text into a control that doesn't exist, or I can't see it, or you're trying to click a button that's not there. For browser automation, because it relies on DOM, it is possible to automate it while the window is minimized, but UI automation is inherently fragile. So you just have to be, there's a lot of trial and error that you have to go through, a lot of things you have to code against, which is why our preference is for people to use APIs as much as possible. Even if the UI automation looks seductive and easy for you to go do, it's just inherently fragile. So just use APIs wherever possible. It's just going to work. It'll work at cloud scale and just be much more resilient. Okay, so that was the first scenario. You are 5.
Okay. So the next couple of scenarios we're actually going to share are actually from our colleagues from Japan, who are actually here today. And so if you have any questions on how they are managing their POC and how they are sort of discovering what scenarios might be useful, our colleagues are here today so they can actually have these discussions with you. We're going to do right now is we're actually going to show you and walk you through one of their scenarios, and then we're actually going to show you a video of how they are actually lighting up another one of their scenarios. Is the video on yours? It's on yours, right?
It's mine, yeah.
Okay. So let's give you guys a little bit of a background on Nissay. So it's the world's 5th largest insurance company, and in fact, the largest one in Japan. As you can see, they obviously have revenues of over $1 billion and a very large organization. So this is clearly an enterprise. And for those of you, I think that we've had questions in the past about, how much can Power Automate scale? How can this RPA scale? You can clearly see that this is designed for enterprises of large sizes. And of course, Microsoft itself uses most of its technology. So we're using Power Automate at Microsoft. So of course, the product is ready for organizations of this size. So of course, what we're going to talk about is some of the scenarios that they are currently using. And in fact, they actually are currently doing a POC with some of these RPA capabilities. And so one of the first things that they've done is they are trying to modernize how they book conference rooms. And so it seems like one of those simple tasks that we all do and we all have to do. But imagine if all of that had to be done manually, or you had multiple different services that you had to connect together on your own in order to make sure that your conference room was booked. Because that's sort of the experience that they have today. They actually have their conference room service, which is one of those applications that doesn't have an API. And they also have their Outlook calendars. And so they actually have to sync both of those somehow, and that process is done manually right now. So what they're doing is they're using Power Automate to connect both Outlook with their older conference booking application so that they can actually make that entire process much easier. And in fact, even a little bit of time saved for one person actually adds up when you have an organization of thousands of people who have had to do that before in this manual process. So it looks something like this. And this is not the one where we have the video. We're going to show you guys the video after this one. But essentially right now what happens is with Outlook, you have to check for the availability of your attendees. Then you actually have to use the system that they currently have, which is the conference booking system, which doesn't have the API. And there you actually have to check the availability of the conference room. And then you actually book the conference room there. You register with the receptionist. And then you actually send all of that information out to your Outlook folks so that you can actually have that on the calendar invite, and you've actually booked the conference room. So what they're doing now is they're actually applying Power Automate so that Power Automate can actually sync with that application, the conference booking application, and work with that. And then you can actually automate the entire process where you actually get the room, you reserve that room, and then that with Power Automate, you can then connect that with your Outlook, and then you can actually have it completely sync with your Outlook calendars so that this process, which is now somewhat tedious and has to be done manually, is fully automated. And now imagine scaling this out to thousands of people who are doing this manually. And that's really what Aioi is actually doing with this one use case. And we're going to actually show you some statistics of how they believe Power Automate can help their organization when it comes to productivity as we go through this entire section. So this is one of the use cases. Once again, not all these use cases are going to be grandiose, and they're not going to be they're not going to be things that seem like they have huge business impact. However, if you think about even these small little things, imagine how much business impact you actually have when thousands of people actually get minutes of their day back because they don't have to do this manually. And that's really the power of having this RPA plus DPA all in one platform. And so when you think about it, it's even these small little things that we can now automate and connect your non-API and API-based applications that really make this a powerful automation service. Now the next one is actually kind of cool because it's actually talking about how Nissay is empowering their citizen developers to get certified from actually making applications. So they actually go through this process today. And of course, Nissay is already using components of the Power Platform, which is great. And one of the things that they do is they actually create Power Apps, and they actually have citizen developers who create Power Apps. And so here, what they actually are doing is currently they actually have someone who creates an app, so it's their citizen developer who creates the app, and that app has to get tested. And so they go through a testing process, and then obviously folks test that app, and they determine whether or not that app is working appropriately. And once it works appropriately, that app is actually then put into an Excel list where everyone knows that this is an approved app, and that Power user actually gets certified as someone who has built these apps and actually can build these different Power Apps. And so this is something now that they have fully automated with the Power Platform, and specifically with Power Automate. And so let's go through this video, and we'll show you how they're doing this. So this video is about 5 minutes long, but it'll show you all the different steps that they've used to actually create this entire scenario.
All right, so here is, I'm going to play, pause, and then continue on. So this is a person that's written an app, and they're about to send an email to the person that's testing the app to say, hey, please test my app. And they go through, this is as soon as the email is sent. What happens on the back end is a browser automation starts using the same Selenium experience that I showed, and it's walking through the experience that the user needs to test. So it's turning on. Let me just fast forward on. It's going to Power Apps. It's now opening the Power App. And at this point, it's now going through. The way they test it is to put in input values that they expect are reasonable values, and just make sure that they don't get any errors and the screens just go through properly as a way to certify the competency of people. And is now going through. This is completely automated. That this used to take somebody time to go sit down, validate the application, go enter this data manually, and it then, in essence, just does that automatically. After the testing is completed, then it logs all that information into an Excel file that contains the results of your test. So if I go through, just fast forward a little bit. So it is opening a template in Excel, and it is going through, and it'll fill out as a template in Excel. It'll fill out the information, when was the date and time, and whether each of the steps that they're validating were passed or didn't pass. It's so very exciting to see another bot work on your behalf. And this is where it is going through and filling out all the steps for is it complete or not. And then after it's done, it then saves that file with whatever ID was submitted for the application. And then whoever sent the actual email, so there's a link to the file, and whoever submitted the application will get an email back from Flow just saying the flow was completed, and here's the result of, thank you for your request, congratulations, you have succeeded. So that's a very simple, straightforward scenario. Again, it takes people time to do, and if you rather have them do something else and automate the mundane, from having some system take care of that, then you just save time and you can focus on something more important. Yeah, any questions about that one? Yes? Can you control the speed? Yes, you can control the speed. You can slow it down if you like to. There are some statements in both Selenium and in the Windows side to be able to say how long do you have to wait? Do you want to wait for actions? It's a great question because some of the UIs can take a lot longer to come up, right? It's not APIs, so sometimes you do have to introduce waits. Yes, you can absolutely do that.
Is that running as an attended or unattended scenario?
Yeah, so the question was, is it running as an attended or unattended scenario? This one is a POC, right? We're working with them on a proof of concept. Ideally, this run as unattended because there's no human engagement involved. Somebody submits a response, my app is ready, it tests it out and sends a response back. There may be some cases where the system is not sure, maybe there are some, maybe this is simplistic, but maybe there is some decision that you need to make where you need to invoke a human to say, hey, I'm not sure yet, why don't you take a look? Maybe there's some like design elements that you need to go, somebody to take a visual look at. So you can then combine, you can extend Flow as it exists today with approvals and RPA, UI automation, to be able to get the combination. Okay.
Okay. And so just to conclude our discussions about Aioi Nissay, and then is that we were talking about how organizations are using the Power Automate and why they're using it. So you can see here they're actually finding that there's over 1,000 different automation scenarios that they have identified that can actually leverage Power Automate, and especially this new RPA capability to help their organization become much more productive and actually make some of these use cases that are somewhat tedious today into ones that are much more approachable and much more manageable because you now have automation across the board for them. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but some of the values that they see with Power Automate is that it's intuitive, it's easy to access, they see a very high ROI, the integration capabilities that we talked about at the very beginning, and then also for them it requires minimal administration, but as we talked about at the very beginning, if you're an IT admin, one of the really great things about Power Automate is it actually provides you with full visibility and scope into what's going on in your environment when it comes to the automation capabilities that are offered with Power Automate. And once again, that's really where we empower IT admins to make sure that their environment is secure and also safe, even while they're actually getting all of this productivity from all of these automation workflows. All right, so now we're going to actually move over to our last customer. And for those of you who've sort of been following the Power Automate and the Power Platform track, you probably are familiar with TrueGreen by this point. If you aren't familiar with them, they've actually been a great partner with us as they've been sort of looking at all these different Power Automate and Power Platform scenarios. So TrueGreen was founded in 1974. They're actually headquartered in Tennessee. And of course, over 40 years, they've been actually managing these different lawn care services. So the way that their business model works is that TrueGreen essentially outsources different lawn care tasks to local vendors. And those vendors actually go and complete that task. And then those vendors will send invoices back to TrueGreen. And then TrueGreen actually manages those invoices and actually manages the customer information with TrueGreen. So basically what happens is they are an agency that doesn't actually work directly with the customer, but they manage all of the customer information, they manage all of the customer invoices, and they actually then outsource those different jobs and job orders to the folks that are local to that area. And so what we're going to show you is a scenario that they actually are very, very excited about. This is one that they actually brought to us when we were talking to them about some of the things we could talk about at Ignite with their CIO. And so in this scenario, they actually want to be able to use Power Automate to actually automate their invoicing process currently. And so currently, this is all done manually, where you have an email that comes in, that email has an attachment. And so today, once that email comes in with an attachment, their finance department or procurement department, someone there has to open that email, read that attachment, understand what the invoice amount is, make sure that they have that invoice amount correctly recorded, and then have to input that into their contact management system. Of course, when you think about how big TrueGreen is, TrueGreen, once again, has thousands of customers all over the globe, all over the United States, everywhere. Though they get thousands and thousands of invoices every single month. And so all of that right now is done manually. So you can think about when you're doing that manually, not only is that leading to a lot of extra time for people, it can create errors because someone actually has to transpose all of those numbers. And so that's another limitation of actually having to do it manually. And because you're spending so much time doing invoicing, you may not actually be spending more time on actually how to make the finance department strategically more efficient. And so now with the Power Automate RPA capability, they are going to actually take this entire process and automate the whole thing. So once again, if you imagine, if you take 1,000 invoices that each one takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes and automate all of that, that's an exceptional amount of time that you get back in the day for that entire department. Now, multiply that for the whole year, and you can see the kind of time savings that you get when you actually have this entire thing, this entire process automated. Now, not only that, if you think about what kind of human errors you might have, most of the people are going to take their time and be very accurate, but there's going to be those situations where someone actually inputs the wrong number. And so if that happens, then you actually also have that element of error. So if you do this automatically, you once again most likely will eliminate any chance of that error happening when you transpose those numbers because the machine is taking care of everything for you. So in this scenario, what we're going to show you, and Ash is going to go deep into this one, and for those of you who may have seen a high-level version of this in Charles's James keynote, this one is going to be a lot deeper where Ash is going to go into some of the hardcore elements of how he built the flow and what you actually see. And so in this case, what's going to happen is this email with the invoice is going to come in with an attachment. We are going to use AI Builder, so we talked about that earlier today, where it can actually recognize the elements of that form, record the things that are most important, and then use that to send an approval to teams. So once again, we were talking about how RPA now can connect the best of the legacy world, which is most likely your non-API applications, with some of the modern productivity tools that you use today. So this is an example of that. Because we have this native integration, we can actually now send this approval to teams. We're going to have your finance department approve that in Teams, and then we're going to actually kick in the RPA capability and update the contact management app. And so all of this is going to be done automatically with one flow that Ash designed, I think, like this morning?
Yeah, last night, 1:30 a.m.
Okay, so hopefully it worked.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe switch over. All right, this is the flow. So as Debraj was mentioning, the trigger is fairly straightforward. When a new invoice comes in, I'm just looking for an invoice. And for each attachment in the invoice, I'll make a prediction call with AI Builder. And let's just walk through AI Builder and build our first model on the fly. So AI Builder is a capability of the Power Platform, and it builds on the cognitive APIs that are available for anybody to use. So many of our partners use these as well. And what we've done is taken those capabilities and wrapped them inside an experience that's designed for citizen developers. So you don't have to worry about Azure keys, you don't have to worry about REST APIs. You just focus on what scenario you want to solve, and there's a step-by-step guided experience to help you get that done. And Debraj mentioned there are 4 of these. I'm going to pick forms processing, which is in preview. And I'm going to say ignite, invoice. And this is, excuse me, this is for invoice processing. And what I'm going to do is just follow the wizard. And there are 3 steps in this wizard. The first step is give me examples of a document, invoice in this case, that you want me to look into. And I've got a folder here with 5 invoices. I'm going to say, yep, use those. And upload these 5 documents. So off they go to AI Builder. AI Builder will go ahead and analyze these to look at where the structure is, what the key value pairs are, apply OCR, just to extract the information that's locked up inside these invoices. And they're also releasing or about to release handwriting recognition as well. So if you've got invoices that have handwritten notes as well, then we're starting to go down that path also so that you can make invoices on it. So at this point, what it's doing is it's going across those 5 different invoices. It's extracting out what is a bill to, what is a ship or a total amount, what is a tax amount. And it's done. It is now extracted those fields. So I say, yep, that's what I want to go into that. And then I pick. That's a field I care about. That's the invoice number. Let me call that the job. And I want who is it going to, the contact email. Let me just call that contact. The total amount and the date. Yeah, so it's fairly straightforward. And that's it. I'm done. This was my definition of the model. And as I go through, I can now train the model. I've configured it to, this is the spec, and go figure out and build the model for me.
Just wondering, like that example, I've seen this example a couple of times.
Yep.
Ignite, and all your invoices there are the same style.
Yes, yes,
We've received invoices from lots of different people.
yes.
How flexible is that?
Yeah, great. So the question was, hey, this looks like cheating because you've got invoices all look the same.
I tried to work around them.
Yeah, no, you're British, so you have to, yes. It is, sorry, I had too much coffee, maybe that was it. You're absolutely right. What it's designed for is for a type of supplier. So like if you've got 30 different suppliers, for each one of those types, then you optimize, you give it enough examples for that, and it has variation in it. But the structure is fairly similar. And then you end up building different kinds of, different types of models that you can then manage and deploy independently. And then as the invoice comes in, then you could predict on all of them and it gives you back a confidence score, or you could be extracting the company name that it's coming from, and then make a decision based on that as well. All right, so my model is done, and all I need to do is just publish this model. You see these are the 4 fields that it extracted. And that's it. That's all I need to do to publish this model. If I go back to my flow, what you see here, so the next step is pull that attachment out, go send it over to AI Builder, where I'm using this one that I just built last night, invoice processing, RPA. And then I'm going to get the response. I pull out the total contact, job, and date. And then what I want to do is send it for approvals. Right? So in this case, if my amount, and I could have put in a decision here. As you know, with Flow, you can put in decisions as well. So if in this case, what I want to do is I get the invoice, and then I want to send it over to somebody else, a human, to make a call at their leisure. So whenever they get around to doing it, that's fine. And this is the context that I provide to them. Now, after the approval is done, let me actually test this out. After the approval is done, if the person said, yep, I approve it, then I want to run a UI flow on the desktop. And that is the desktop application that you saw in the keynote as well, which is this desktop application that has information about the customer and their orders. And let me actually go through and record one of these. And we can go deeper into that. So UI flow. All right, this is where I specify all my inputs. So I had job was an input, the job number, which is 1,000. Invoice number. Let me add one more, which is the email. And this is the contact info. So and maybe date. Oops. 10. 13. All right, and this is the recording experience that I think you might have seen in the other sessions as well, or definitely Charles showed at the keynote. And this is, think of this as a cross-desktop recording experience across different applications. And I start recording, and I go to my contact management app, and I say, I want to search for this email address. Once I've searched, I want to go back to activities, and I want to create a new job. And everybody that's doing this is already so, they all know all the hotkeys here. I want to use the invoice number. Let's choose this one. And the invoice date, just to show you an example of what that is. And save and close. So the result of this, and let's go a little deeper into how this mechanism actually works. The result of this, so the verbs are left click and right click and enter value and read value, as you would expect from UI automation. For left click, there is, for each one of the actions or like left click, there are some properties that we have, which are how long to wait after. There was a gentleman in the back that was asking for, can you introduce wait? This is how you do different techniques to be able to just reliably find your control, and etc. Right? So it goes through, and it has different representations of how it identifies what the control is. And I go through next, and I can now test this out with job. Yes, so the question was, how about when the user interface updates? Depends on what the user interface how it was updated. If the control is still that control, however it was written, and it just moves locations, or it just is there's a different, maybe different styling to it, that's absolutely fine. If the control moves off the page, if the hierarchy, if the way to find it is different, then it may not work, which is inherently that's the fragility with UI automation, is you're subject to the app evolving. The good side or the bad side is that most of these applications are more stagnant, that they don't evolve as frequently. So, so it doesn't, but that's the sweet spot for it, is applications that don't change that often. Oh, yeah. OK, great. So it's going through, and it's playing back, and saved and closed. Now, just in the interest of time, I've got a flow here already. And all it does is, it should be obvious by now, which is it just sends send an email. And it'll go through. It'll read the invoice. It'll parse the data. It'll open the desktop application. It'll enter the values, and then close the application. In the middle, it'll also ask me for approval if I want to go approve this thing. And yeah, this is how, a few minutes back, this is how I approved it, yeah? But I'm just going to move back to slides so we can finish the session. OK, so that was the demo. Now, in addition to what Debraj mentioned, it's also really it is about more real time, removing gaps in the removing latency in the process, which just gets you closer to the customer, closer to building better products, closer to increasing your sales, and delivering just better experiences for your customers. OK, final points, just to wrap up. So this is, you saw the Power Platform. This is a slightly different variation of the slide, which is the way I think of, yes, they're all together, but they're individually they are useful and valuable, but they're better together. And one of the things that we discussed at the booth several times this week was, if you have this layer of automation where you can embed approvals, you can embed connectors, you can embed AI, you can embed UI automation, then that becomes a business logic that you can invoke from other layers. So if a trigger goes off on your dashboard, you can go kick off this automation. From an application itself, if you've got a Power App and you want to go kick off, if you have modern experience that wants to drive a legacy application, you can go kick that off. If you have a chat-like experience, if you want a chat-like experience, this is what Charles showed at the keynote, then you can drive Power Automation as well. And these are all just because it's all designed to be consistent and just work seamlessly together. This is the advantage of one platform that does it. And that's the platform. Just quickly, these are the 3 things that we are looking forward to announcing over the next few months and delivering over the next few months. And this is Unattended. As I mentioned, this was a private preview right now for Unattended. We look forward to delivering a more robust GA. And dedicated support for applications. There's many applications where accessibility is finicky and it doesn't work all the time, so providing dedicated experiences for very common applications that can run locally or on remote machines, and then just better editing experiences as well. And I think that was it. There's a lot of resources available to you. We're at the booth as well if you want to swing by.
Yeah. And for those of you who actually want to continue on your Power Platform and Power Automate journey, we actually have a live mechanics show going on right now where Charles Lamanna is going to walk through the example of how to build a Power App, how it connects to Power Automate with the RPA capability, and how you actually can also get a Power BI readout on that app. So that's actually going to be going on in about a minute. So if you guys can race over there and want to see that, it's going to happen right now.
Thank you.